Greetings Internet, it's Monica, and today I am here to share with you all my spring darlings. These are the things that I have just been loving this past spring. Obviously, there's a lot that I haven't been loving this past spring. It's been a difficult time, I think, for everybody. But I think it's also really important to celebrate things when you can, and celebrate especially the things that you love. That's what I want to do today. I just want to talk about the things that have really brought me joy over the past few months, even though it has been definitely a much more difficult spring than springs past. So without further ado, let's dive in. I had to do a full reading wrap up because I've read so many books that I haven't talked about yet, but I wanted to talk about a favorite book, which has definitely been The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book that I have put off for so long because I found it intimidating, and now I am so mad at myself because it's amazing. It's so good. Okay, I will admit the first 50 to 100 pages real rough. Not that they're bad, but it's I had this moment where I was like, am I too dumb for this? It's a little complicated and it kind of just throws you into it and you just have to go with it. But if you're willing to go with it, to push through those 50 to 100 pages, this book is so rewarding and so gripping. It does not stop. The way that things twist and turn throughout it is just brilliant. I can't recommend this book enough. Of course it won the Hugo. It should win every award in the history of ever because it's that good. This is set in a world where apocalypses just happen pretty regularly. The people of this country are very used to having to see everything destroyed and having to rebuild. And it follows 3 different women as they make their way through this world on their own different journeys. I also just think the representation in this book is amazing. You have a polyamorous couple who are just everything to me, and just lots of queer characters in general. Everyone in this book is Black, I believe. I cannot wait to read the next book in the series. I need to order that. So yeah, this is definitely a favorite. Another favorite for me has been on my phone, and it is Libro FM, which is an app that I've been loving for audiobooks. So if you're unfamiliar, Libro FM is basically I would say the best comparison is to Audible, in that you pay a flat fee every month and you get a credit to be able to use for an audiobook of your choosing. Except unlike Audible, when you purchase from Libro FM, you're actually supporting indie bookstores, which is so important, especially right now. There are a couple different websites that are doing something similar. So another one, and these are both US based ones, but I know that there's one in the UK, I'm blanking on the name, that is also doing something similar. But bookshop.org is also a site where if you purchase books through them, you get a really competitive price, but you also are again directly supporting bookstores, and they actually focus on books. So right now, if you order books from Amazon, they aren't prioritizing shipping books. So it is a good time to look at other places if you're looking to purchase books online. I highly recommend both of them. They're amazing services. Libro FM has pretty much everything that Audible has except for Audible exclusives, which I really hope is a thing that will fade away into the past, because obviously it's really frustrating that there are audiobooks that you can only get through Amazon. I will link down in the description box if any of you are interested in checking out Libro. I have a referral link it's just the referral link that everyone can get. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I think with that you can get a month or 2 for free. So I'll put that in the description box. And also, I've decided to start from now on, when I mention books, to use bookshop.org, again, because I want to go with the service that actually supports booksellers. So that's what I'll be doing from now on. I created my own little bookstore within the platform, so if you want to check out some of my favorite books, you can do that. That is, full disclosure, an affiliate program, so you don't have to shop using those links, but if you do, it does help my channel out a bit, so just throwing that out there. I want to talk about some things that I watched this spring and loved. First of all, I have to talk about The Half of It, which is the new Netflix film. The Half of It follows Ellie Chu, who is a Chinese American girl who is a lesbian, and she's living in this really small town. She ends up getting hired by this boy to write love letters for this girl that he has a crush on, but she also has a crush on this girl. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous going into this one because Sierra Burgess kind of had a similar theme to it and was wildly disappointing, but I'm super happy to let you know that I absolutely adored The Half of It. I loved it so much. It's a story about first love and friendship and coming of age. It feels very much so like The Half of It, you know, it's the start of all of these kids turning into, like, beginning to become the adults that they're going to be. And I think it's so magical, and it felt honestly like an instant classic as I was watching it. I just loved it so much. It's cinematically just stunning also, which I really appreciated. Another film I loved this spring was Emma, the new Austen adaptation. Emma is tied for my favorite Austen novel with Persuasion. I love those two so much. And I've never really had, like, I've never watched an Emma adaptation where I was like, oh no, I hated that. Like, I've pretty much loved all of them that I've seen at least. And this one, I think, it's not my favorite. Clueless is still number one for me, but this one is a very, very, very close number two. It's so good. I feel like it does such a good job in capturing especially Emma's character in a way that I haven't really seen other adaptations be able to do, and for that I just loved it so much. Also aesthetically, it is just divine. Like, it's such a treat to watch. Bill Nighy as Emma's dad also, everything. So I just adored this adaptation, and I can't wait to be able to purchase it so that I can watch it again and again and again and again along with Little Women. I love period films. Now, moving on to television, there's a couple of shows that I really loved this spring. The first is Little Fires Everywhere, which is an adaptation of the novel Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and I loved this adaptation. It does what I most appreciate adaptations to do, in that it respects the original text, but it does something fresh and new with it. It expands it in its adaptation, and I think for me, one of the best ways that it does that is by changing the races of Pearl and Mia. So in the book, I think their race is either ambiguous or they're white. I don't fully remember. And there's this really interesting article with Celeste Ng where she talks about, you know, because she is Asian, she didn't feel like she was really equipped to write that story, but when they adapted it, they were able to basically expand on that and dive deeper into that element of Shaker Heights, which I felt just added so much more to the actual story. So I love both the novel and the adaptation. I do think the novel explores a bit more into the adoption side of things, which I really appreciate. So I definitely think both are worth consuming in whatever way, but I highly recommend the adaptation of the series if you haven't started that one yet. It's brilliant. And then I just recently finished Ryan Murphy and Janet Mock's new show on Netflix, Hollywood, which I went into very nervous at first, I'll be honest, because I haven't had the greatest luck with Ryan Murphy before. I just feel like he struggles to kind of stick the landing on a lot of his work, but I feel like I did not have those issues with Hollywood. Like, if anything, I kind of felt like the last half was even stronger than the first half. If you're not familiar, Hollywood, the show, is kind of a revisionist take on old Hollywood and the mythology of old Hollywood. You basically follow a variety of characters who are all trying to get their break in Hollywood. And many of them are coming up against the brick wall that is being marginalized. If you want to talk about a person of color story during old Hollywood, it's pretty much always a tragedy. And I think that telling those stories is so important. But at the same time, I think we get all of these old Hollywood stories where we watch a fairy tale happen, and it's always for like white and straight people. And for me, this show kind of felt like this is my fairy tale, you know, like this is the fairy tale written for Asian kids who looked back at old Hollywood and only saw yellow face. And I think that, you know, while you need the realism, it's also okay to have some of that fantasy, and it's okay to feel conflicted about that fantasy too. I think for me, when I was watching it, especially getting to the end, it was like, you know, I loved it. I loved the fantasy, but it was also, like I said, gut-wrenching because this isn't the world we get to live in. But I think ultimately the show does a really good job of just letting people of color, queer people, take the reins and tell a story and tell a fairy tale that they want to tell. Also, I think having that final episode be directed by an Asian woman, Jessica Yu, it just made that final episode so much more cathartic and amazing. And just Janet Mock's work as a director on it I thought was fantastic. I loved her episodes. I think my one criticism of the show is that I think it needed a couple more episodes to really dive into all the topics that it was trying to explore. Ultimately, I do feel like Hollywood does a fantastic job of both bringing the viewer into this dreamland, this fantasy world that it has created, while also pretty scathingly ripping the mythology of old Hollywood to shreds. So, highly recommend. Now I want to talk about some music that I've been loving. First, I recently discovered this Korean duo that I've been obsessed with. My friend Matthew sent me one of their songs, and ever since then I cannot stop listening to them. They are called Rainbow Note, and they just have the perfect like 80s synth pop calm vibes. Like, I just want to listen to their music while lying under a cherry blossom tree. You know, it's that kind of feeling, and sadly I cannot do that right now, but if I could, I would be. But yeah, I love their music so much. It's super fun. I'd highly recommend it if you're like a fan of like Carly Rae Jepsen, for example. I think you'll really like them. They're a bit more chill, but amazing nonetheless. I've also been loving Conan Gray's new album. The new song by IU and Suga, 8, so good. Ugh, I love it so much. I've been listening to a lot of Phoebe Bridgers. I feel like that's just like classic springtime jams though. Oh, and I love that Animal Crossing song by Sean Wasabi. That one is very fun. So yeah, that's the music I've been really loving this past spring. Another favorite of mine has, of course, been Animal Crossing, which I've been loving to play on my Switch. I did want to talk, though, about the decal that I put on my Switch. This is another favorite for me because it makes my Switch pretty and pink and not the neon colors that it was before. Although I do like the classic look of the Switch, I wanted something that was more my vibe. So I bought this decal from Sticky Bunny Co. I've gotten a lot of questions about it whenever I post about it, so I thought I'd just talk about it in this video. But I got it from Sticky Bunny Co. and then I put on a clear case just to protect everything. I will say that eventually it's my goal to get like Joy-Cons that are just sort of like had the casing removed and changed, but those are expensive, so that's a purchase for another day, not today. And then lastly, another total fave for me is my iPad Pro. I've wanted one for years, but I just felt like I could never justify it, and recently I've needed it more and more for work, so that's why I ended up picking it up. I do a lot of freelance stuff, so I picked it up for that. And it's been amazing just for like productivity, and like I love note-taking on it. I love different apps like Notion. I love Procreate. I feel like I've been able to do a lot more art. Like, you guys know, I love trying to incorporate art into my everyday life, but it can be kind of cumbersome and annoying if your focus isn't to be an artist, to get out all the art supplies and go through the whole process. Like, it's nice and I love it, and it is a really nice like intentional thing to do, I think, but it's hard to do that every day, and doing it on my iPad has been so amazing, and I've loved just getting to learn Procreate. I've been watching a lot of like Skillshare videos, not sponsored. I have worked with them in the past though, but I've been watching a lot of Skillshare tutorials about like different Procreate tutorials and things, and they've been really helpful. There's one by this artist, I think her name was like Brooke Lasser, maybe, I don't know, but hers is my favorite by far. If you get Procreate and you want to learn how to use it, definitely recommend watching hers. But yeah, I've been just loving it. I've been really wanting to get into reading manga on here, so that's up next for me to figure out how to do. If you guys have any recommendations of subscription services or anything, let me know in the comments down below. Alright, so those are all of my spring darlings. I'd love to hear from you guys what you've been loving this spring, what's been bringing you joy. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!